05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock and I'm Michelle Dewberry. We're still there, everybody. We've got 35 days to go till the election. Let's have a look at the latest from the campaign trail. Today, not least, it's Starmer versus the Corbynistas. The purge has well and truly begun. Is it the right move or not? Also, did you see Reform UK? They've now said that we need to charge employers an immigration tax if they insist on hiring foreign workers. What do you think to that? Also, Labour have promised to take back our towns from thugs and thieves. Let me ask you this, sir. Is it even possible that anymore, or has that ship well and truly sailed? Also, there's calls to allow 18 to 30-year-olds free movement across the EU and vice versa to live and work. Is that common sense, or is it a betrayal of Brexit? You tell me. Also, let me ask you, do you think we need more social housing here in the UK? I've got all that to come and more, but first, let's cross live for the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Thanks very much indeed, Michelle, and this is your 6 o'clock news. Let's bring you some breaking news first of all. You've been hearing in the last hour that Mark Logan, who represented Bolton North East for the Conservative Party, is reportedly, we understand, leaving the party. He's told media today the Conservatives are now, in his words, unrecognisable, and he's urging people to support Labour instead. It's the third defection by a Tory MP to Labour in just over a month. That news just coming to us in the last 15 minutes or so. More on that, of course, as we get it. Now, also in the news today, the family of an RAF pilot who died in a crash on Saturday say he lived life with an unwavering passion. Mark Long, who was 43, was killed when his Spitfire plane crashed into a field near RAF Coningsby on Saturday. In a statement, his family paid tribute, saying that his ability to connect to everyone he met was infectious and he'll be cherished and deeply missed. Election news now, and the Prime Minister is warning that Labour's net zero policies will hurt Britain's economy. Touring a factory in Buckinghamshire today, Rishi Sunak acknowledged that recent years had been tough, but he said Labour's plan to achieve net zero was too costly.
I've been very clear that we need to get there in a different way to what had been proposed previously. And that means we need to be more serious, hard-headed and pragmatic about it, because there are a couple of things that I want to prioritise. I want to prioritise our country's energy security. That we've seen in the last couple of years what's happened, right, when we're held hostage by dictators like Putin. We can't have that happen. So that's why I'm supportive of energy coming out of the North Sea. We're going to need it for decades to come. We're better off getting it here at home. It's good for our economy, good for our jobs, good for our energy security. That's something that the Labour Party opposes.
Rishi Sunak. Well, Sir Keir Starmer is standing by Wales's First Minister, Vaughan Gething, as Labour's campaign arrived in Wales today. Sir Keir thanking Mr Gething for his leadership and saying he was looking forward to a new partnership with the First Minister if Labour takes power. Sir Keir says he's proud of Labour's record in Wales and said Mr Gething, who's facing a vote of no confidence next week, is doing a very good job. Labour's deputy leader says she doesn't see any reason why Diane Abbott can't stand as an MP with the party at the general election in July. According to reports in the Guardian newspaper, Angela Rayner believes Miss Abbott hasn't been treated fairly or appropriately. The veteran Labour MP had the whip restored this week after a long suspension. She's accused Sir Keir Starmer of culling the party's left wing. Sir Keir Starmer has said he wants the highest quality candidates and described her as being a trailblazer. And the Green Party was out on the road today as well, setting out its vision to tackle the cost of living, improve housing and treat Britain's polluted waterways. Co-leader Carla Denyer told an event in Bristol this afternoon that Labour had backtracked on its green investments and that the Greens' role in the new Parliament would be vital. Recent polls put the party at 6% and it's hoping to elect 4 MPs at the general election. Businesses hiring foreign workers should be subject to an employer immigration tax. That's according to the Reform Party. Their leader, Richard Tice, said today the new levy would help end what he called a deadly addiction to cheap overseas labour. Joined by the party's honorary president, Nigel Farage, they claimed that mass migration had driven down wages for British citizens.
I think for too many people, work doesn't pay. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to overcome this addiction. If you want to bring in people from overseas, then there's a price to that. Because this great country of ours, this incredible nation, we've all paid for it over decades and decades. So it's not unreasonable to expect you to chip in a bit.
Now, a 9-year-old girl remains in a critical condition this afternoon after a shooting on a busy high street in East London last night. The child was out dining with her family inside a restaurant in Hackney when shots were fired from men outside believing to be riding a stolen motorbike. They injured the girl as well as 3 other people. One of those faces potentially life-changing injuries. And a primary school teacher has been jailed for life with a minimum term to serve of 20 years for killing her partner. Fiona Beale, who's 50, stabbed Nicholas Billingham and buried his body in their garden. The Old Bailey today heard she killed him in cold blood before then impersonating him on text messages to try to convince his family that he was safe and well. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Polly. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and a new face to this programme. We like that, the former leader of the Communications Workers Union, Bill Hayes. Hello and welcome. Hello. And also, welcome back to you, Kelvin Mackenzie. You know the drill as well, don't you? It's not just about these two in the studio, it's about you at home as well. What's on your mind tonight? You can get in touch with me all the usual ways. You can email gbviews@gbnews.com, or, of course, you can go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay. You can talk amongst yourselves or, indeed, directly to me there, as many of you are already doing. And, of course, you can tweet or X me. Whatever you're doing tonight, however you're listening, you are, of course, very welcome. And of course, you've got the countdown, haven't you? It's 35 days to go. We're gonna hang on in there, everyone. We're gonna get through it together, as I always say. And don't worry, I'm sure you've got better things to do than follow the twists and turns of the campaign trail. And what do I always say? Don't worry about it, because we'll follow it for you. So let's cross live then, shall we, to our political correspondent to get up to speed with what's happened today, Catherine Forster.
Is there a purge of the left going on? That seems to be, many people see what's happening here. So the divisions that Sir Keir Starmer has managed to paper over within the Labour Party for a long time really emerging today. Elsewhere, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, talking at an event, was quizzed by somebody whose mother had died during COVID and he wasn't able to say goodbye to her. A difficult moment for him. Meanwhile, Sir Ed Davey, another day, another stunt. I think this one to top them all, going down that water slide wearing not terribly much. A picture that none of us can ever forget.
We'll never be able to unsee that image of Ed Davey zipping down that slat. I mean, how much more ridiculous can some of these stunts get? As I've said, we've got 35 days to go. We've already seen them zipping down hills on push bikes. Today, we've just seen the slip and slide. We've seen people falling off paddle boards. What are we going to get to by the time we're at 30-odd days? Probably some kind of naked pole dancing, I don't know, twister or something. Let's hope not. Look, other news as well. We've just been hearing it in the bulletin as well. We've had another defection. Kelvin McKenzie from the Labour Party to the Tories. This is the MP Mark Logan. Who's he? I hear you cry at home. Well, he was the MP for Bolton North East. I have to say, he's not going to run in the next election, which always makes me think, well, what's the point in what you're doing? But I guess it's to galvanise support in his area for the Labour Party. He says it's about the change. He didn't like some of the approaches towards Gaza and all the rest of it. What do you make to that?
Well, he's clearly a chancer. I mean, he only had a majority, I think, of 378 anyway, so he was going to go the way of all fish in any event. It's impossible to work out why that would be in his interest, except in this respect. This battle over Diane Abbott is a great win for Starmer, because I'm old enough to remember Michael Foot. I'm also young enough to remember Jeremy Corbyn. And the reason they went to the most enormous defeats is because they were of the left. They were of Diane Abbott and others who are now being excluded from the Labour Party. The Tories should be very, very worried about Starmer effectively, despite claiming it's all hands off, it's a Labour NEC doing all this stuff, because what it is a signal to people, to voters, that actually you don't need to worry. There aren't any Michael Foots, there aren't any Corbyns, there aren't any Diane Abbotts in our party. They are ordinary technocratic kind of people, and that, by the way, is a worry, because the great thing.
Do you agree with them purging the likes of Diane Abbott?
No, I'm a great. Look. I come on GB News. Why? Because it's one of the few places that will allow a speech of this variety to take place. So I believe in free speech. They should allow anybody on there. Why do I say that? One, because I believe in free speech, but actually I also believe politically that actually what Starmer is doing is very clever, and actually the Tories should be concerned about this going on in this manner.
It's not just Diane Abbott, by the way. There's a few other people in the firing line at the moment, and perhaps rumoured to be even a few more as well. There was a potential hopeful candidate. Did you see this on the BBC last night? Let's take a look and then we'll discuss.
Like, how am I not allowed to talk about my experiences of Islamophobia and the double standards that I've seen and that we see with Diane Abbott, for instance? I honestly, I'm just so shocked right now to be treated this badly after being such an active member of the party.
So that was Faiz Shahid there. So she was hoping to be the candidate for Chingford. And we've got other people as well. Do you agree with the what many people are calling the purge happening in Labour?
Well, in respect to Diane Abbott, I think the test will be, I think Tuesday today when the NEC have to decide. And lots of people are recognising the contribution Diane's made. 37 years, I think it is, she's been an MP. First black woman to be elected to Parliament. I see no reason why she shouldn't be an MP. And, you know, the Labour Party should be a broad church. It's not a sect. And, you know, we always have the experience of people being parachuted in all parties just towards the day of the election. So that's nothing new. But I think, you know, Diane Abbott deserves to be a candidate. She's had a disciplinary process she went through, so I think she'd continue to represent the people of her constituency very well.
And what do you think about some of the strange goings-on, to put it mildly? So you've had Keir Starmer, for example, very recently saying that it was still a disciplinary process that was ongoing, when actually it turns out it wasn't at all. That had finished pretty much in December. She'd done that online course, so that really wasn't true. So what do you think about the way it's been handled?
Well, it hasn't been handled well, that's for sure. But the test will be if Diane is on the ballot paper for the Labour Party.
Do you think she will be?
I hope she will be. I see no reason why not. She's been through a disciplinary process. That's complete. In every other respect, she's been... don't forget, she was Shadow Home Secretary at one point. So she's quite a substantial politician.
Well, one of the interesting issues was Diana but was prepared to take the penalty on this, which is the suspension, and then she had to sit an anti-Semitic kind of teach-in to try and teach her not to say things against the Jews. Now, that lady from Newsnight, she claims, right, that first of all, she's being penalised, saying it's people of colour that are being thrown out. But the other point is that the NEC, the reason they gave her the biff is because she liked a tweet in which it contained an anti-Semitic trope, right? She now says, oh, I'm very sorry about that. What she's very sorry about that is that, in fact, the Labour NEC said, really, if you've got those views, we don't want you as our candidate. And I think that's a good thing.
Do you? I mean...
I'm not familiar with that case, so I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, and there's another one as well, isn't there? Lloyd Russell Moyle, he's had some complaints made against him dating back years ago. He's basically saying this is all kind of some kind of ploy, vexatious claims to try and prevent him standing as a candidate, which he's disputing the fairness of that as well. So that's what I mean. This goes much broader.
Yeah, but Keir denies that, and Keir says it's an independent process.
Do you believe him?
I do. I don't see any reason why not. I think that the test is whether Diana will be a candidate. You know, I mean, there's no reason why she shouldn't be a candidate. And, you know, I've been a Labour Party member under Labour leaders since the time of Jim Callaghan, it's a million years ago. And, you know, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think he's doing a good job. And I think at the moment, with what's happening with the Tory party, I mean, they're just... I mean, I've never seen a party implode as much as this party. And so I think he should be confident in his people, that we should be a broad church, and I think there's no reason why Diane can't be the candidate following the Tuesday NEC.
Yeah, and I've got to say, that candidate there that we've just been showing, the lady from Newsnight, this is all about 14 tweets over a period of 10 years. So that's what they're kind of pulling her up on. And this notion, you're saying, oh, well, if you've liked this tweet, then good. I mean... Come on, we all use social media, right?
True.
And the way that we use social media is, you know, sometimes do we pay 100% attention to what we're doing all the time? I've lost count of the times I've got on my phone, for example, and I've got my little boy next to me chucking dinosaurs at me or whatever he's done. So, I mean, I'm not defending the tweet or the liking of this tweet, but what I'm saying is this notion that if you press like on a tweet, that's it, career over, get out. Do you think that's a bit much?
Well, look, I personally do. But the trouble is that if you start liking an anti-Semitic trope and you are an MP, right, or you are a potential candidate, you are over. That is over. We don't want that in our country. And if you start liking Islamophobic tweets, right, you are done for. So these people know what they're doing. That's their job. They are MPs. They know, don't bother.
I mean, I understand the point, and anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, absolutely, you know, is to be tackled and dealt with. But I do wonder sometimes the sad life of the people who have to go through these tweets, because I agree with you. I mean, I'm very self-conscious now when you like but sometimes you get tagged into something. And you don't know until a couple of hours later that somebody's tagged you into something. So when you're tagged into something, does that mean you're responsible for it? So it is a bit of a... It seems to me a bit of a... I don't think people have got to take actions, particularly when you're an MP. But I do wonder sometimes. I mean, it's pretty sad when someone's got to troll through all the tweets.
But remember that lady... Oh,
if someone went through your tweets... Oh,
no. By all means, go through my tweets, right? But I'm not running for public office.
Would you be happy to be cancelled from whatever roles it is that you're involved in because of what you've tweeted?
Yeah. Well, if somebody felt, GBNews or somebody like that, or somebody else felt, I mean, Sky News, I went on there a few months ago, and I attacked the Qatari ambassador for sending $500 million a year to Hamas, right? At that, boom, Sky News threw me off. Look, it's just you either have your views or you don't have your views. She's chosen to have her views. She is running for public office. It's for the Labour Party to decide whether they want her in or not. I think they're being very clever. If they look as though they're clearing out the stable, well, I think that is a powerful message to voters, and will keep them in office.
Kelvin, you're very quick on what should and what beyond. Well, famously, you didn't check a headline, did you?
I did. I wrote the headline.
Yeah, well, you wrote that headline and subsequently...
Yeah, and I paid a price for it.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, that was a
price.
Newspaper. That wasn't just a tweet when you accused...
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I've never objected to it.
Well, I'm not. I'm not with that headline. I thought it was terrible. But the point being, we all do things that, are wrong and out of step. Take the point about, no time for anti-Semitism, no time for Islamophobia. As to whether there's a purge, I mean, it sounds very dramatic, but the test will be Diane. I mean, and she's gathering support by the day.
Well, let's see what happens. Tell me what you think to this notion. And by the way, I'm not defending what anyone did or didn't like or whatever on Twitter. That's their business. What I'm suggesting is, and what I'm probing, I guess, and putting to you guys is, what other walk of life where every single sentence that you've said or emotion that you've displayed or whatever follows you around ad infinitum, and then you get kind of hoisted by the petards of? Do you think that is fair, or is that just, as it is when you use social media? Do you deserve to be cancelled from whatever it is that you want to do based on, I don't know, a click that you did years ago? Tell me your thoughts, all the usual ways. After the break, I want to talk to you about law and order. The Labour Party have been speaking out about how they're going to essentially reclaim the streets from the criminals. Do you reckon anyone can do that anymore, or has the ship sailed too far? Tell me.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Joint CEO at the UK Sepsis Trust, Dr. Ron Daniels. Very good to see you this morning. Why is it with sepsis we sort of hear very little about it in day-to-day life until there's either a big story or a big tragedy? Why is that? Is it common?
Well, it's astonishing, isn't it? We have a condition here that affects nearly 250,000 people across the UK each year and claims 48,000 lives. And just for context, breast cancer, and I'm not diminishing how horrible that can be, claims 11,000 lives. So sepsis is 4 times more prolific as a killer. I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it doesn't really belong to any particular speciality of doctors. It touches every aspect of healthcare, and therefore there's no professional group to be championing it, which means it needs an advocacy organisation like ours.
My understanding is that it's when your own immune system starts to attack the tissues, but by the time people realise that their temperature isn't just flu or something, they can often be in quite a perilous state.
It arises in people of any age, people with whether or not they've got underlying illness, and it can arise as a consequence of any infection. So it presents hugely differently.
So what do we do?
If you're concerned something is devastatingly wrong, there are 6 key symptoms to look for, and they spell the word sepsis. S for slurred speech or confusion. E for extreme pain in the muscles or joints. P for passing no urine, no water in a day. S for severe breathlessness. I for it feels like I'm going to die, and people really do say that. And then the final S for skin that's mottled or discoloured or very pale. Any one of those 6 in the context of infection, it's go straight to A&E.
The People's Channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, good evening and welcome back. This is Dewbs Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Alongside me I've got the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the former leader of the Communications Workers Union, Billy Hayes. Lots of you guys getting in touch about those topics, about the Labour purge, so to speak, but I'm also interested as well, how long should you be held responsible for anything that you've tweeted? Is it forever, or should there be a cut-off, or what? Get in touch and let me know. But also something that caught my eye today, the Labour Party out and about speaking tough about how they are going to crack down on crime. Let's just have a little listen, shall we?
We would have 13,000 more neighbourhood police and PCSOs right across the country, because people need to see the Bobby on the beat again, working in communities. It will cost up to £400 million, and we'd fund that by a new programme of police efficiency on contracts that's based on the work of the Independent Police Foundation.
Well, don't forget, of course, it was Tony Blair that said that he was going to be tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. And many people would argue, and it certainly feels, doesn't it, that many of the crime statistics are out of control. They're going in the wrong direction. Billy, do you think that the Labour Party, with their plans of 13,000 extra staff and all the rest of it, is that the answer? Is that going to fix things?
Well, it's going to help fix things. I mean, don't forget, Tories, 20,000 less police officers. So more police officers, more. I'd like to see more bobbies on the beat, as opposed to police cars roaring about, you know, with their sirens playing. I think more people would be reassured. More police on the beat, more PSOs, you know, just to get a feeling of safety. And so I think that what Yvette's talking about is to be welcomed.
Do you agree with what she's saying?
Well, I'm always in favour of more police officers, and I share Billy's concerns that we don't see enough officers walking down the street. I mean, where I live, and I live in Weybridge in Surrey, I don't think I have ever seen, in 20 years of living there, ever seen 2 police officers or 1 police officer just walking up and down. Yeah. And I think the police would say it's not good use of our manpower, our woman power. The real question comes down to another issue is, although I'm massively in favour of more police officers, they need to be funded, right? And my question then is, where does the money come from? And you come up with a kind of nebulous expression there from the Shadow Home Secretary, basically saying, we're going to crack down on this or we're going to crack down on that, all of which I'm very happy to happen. But what I do expect to happen is that taxes will then rise to fund what are worries that people have. And why wouldn't they just be honest and say, you know, running the NHS, running the police force, running various state things are going to cost more money and we're going to put the money in, rather than claiming we're going to clamp down on some wealthy people who aren't even going to be in the country anymore. So, you know, I've just got a question mark about whether any of this is possible.
Well, some of these stats, by the way, so she talks about 13,000 new officers. You've got to look at this as well, because about 4,000 of those will be PCSOs. There'll be 3,000 new full police officers, and then you've got your, you know, your specials, like your part-time volunteers as well. They'll be leveraged in there. So she reckons that she can save some of that money by so-called efficiencies. I mean, how we've even got any efficiencies left anywhere is absolutely beyond me, because if all of this excess cash was just floating around, why is it not yet being resolved? Of course, this comes on the day where you've seen that horrendous story where you've got a 9-year-old little girl in critical care. She was injured. She was having dinner with her family in London, and this person just zipped up on a bike, fired shots, and caught the girl in the crossfire, essentially. And I mean, you know, you mentioned you're from Liverpool, so you will be familiar. We've had a couple of cases in Liverpool. Rhys Jones, a little boy there. Olivia Pratt-Corbell, do you remember her? The mum opened the door and she was caught and killed as well. I get goosebumps whenever I think about those 2 cases. And I mean, how do you stop this stuff?
Well, I think we've got to have a look at the drug policy in this country in terms of what it's doing to our streets. When I grew up in the 60s in Liverpool, I lived in Crocs, the same place as the Rooneys. And it was a great place to live. And then Thatcher come along, and our estate becomes Smack City. And so there's got to be a correlation to investment in public, like, for example, youth clubs. I don't know what the figure is for the number of youth clubs that have been closed. So that's not an excuse for the terrible things that happened over the last 24 hours. But there's definitely a correlation. When I grew up in the 60s, our council estate in a walk-up council flat, we thought it was great. And then come the 80s, unemployment, you know, and all that infuse of drugs, and is definitely all part of it. This is obviously something to do with it. I'm not saying that's a total solution, but it's definitely not an excuse. But it's definitely more police on the beat. More. I think the thing is, rather than just focus on the numbers, more visible presence. I mean, my area in southwest London now is actually quite well policed. But I think that's what people want. They don't want to hear these sirens blaring, because nobody ever seems to know what happened at the end of the police racing to a particular incident. You don't see reports of they had to race to this incident because there was some such thing happened. It just seems to be, I think it's the kind of, I don't know, it seems I think people want to see more visible presence.
You've got, for example, about half of police stations have closed down since 2010. Yeah. And as you've just been mentioning, the Tories cut about 20,000, then they've started to rehire lots of those officers as well. And obviously, the Labour Party statistics, they also include some of those hires that have already been made by the Tories. But this notion about youth clubs, we hear this all the time, and actually it's part of the policy of the Labour Party to have these new youth hubs. Does that wash with you, that the reason that these kids are out and about doing stuff is because they can't go play snooker in a church hall or whatever?
You definitely don't want the kind of thugs that hang around in city centres making life a nightmare, but going down to that youth club. That youth club will be shut in about 2.2 seconds, and you probably will need police officers actually on the youth clubs in certain areas of our country in order to make it safe for ordinary people to go there. Now, look, I'm as I point out on a number of occasions, I'm somewhat older. I think it's good to see Billy here because at least that leavens the bread slightly. But I didn't go to youth clubs, right? I didn't go to youth clubs. I mean, you can't say, well, you're an example of the kind of person we don't want actually in a youth club. But is there any example that it is youth clubs? Is it actually the parents of these children who are, they're not children, they're teenagers, who aren't doing anything about either trying to control them, and if they can't control them, can they call in the police and say these people are out of control? Should these children be taken away from them? I'm just saying it is literally wrong to have any city centre where anybody feels concerned about going in there at night for fear that they may be assaulted or abused in some way. And clearly, look, if Labour want to do something and experiment, I'm absolutely all for it. But in all honesty, I don't believe that this is the outcome. The outcome will be what they want. What you need is these kids actually either taken away from their parents or something happens. There has been a breakdown between parental responsibility and these children. I blame the parents completely.
Well, one of the conversations that they were having is about reintroducing almost like an ASBO-style, I was going to call it a sanction, but the fact even calling it a sanction would be quite laughable because many of you will remember some of those ASBO kids, and they got these ASBOs. Yep. Like, look at these two. They got these ASBOs, age 11 and 12, these brothers. They almost wore it like a badge of honour.
That's true.
It was almost pretty damn cool to have an ASBO or to have a tag or whatever. And I think with the advent of social media now, obviously that wasn't a thing when those two kids was getting their ASBOs, but when you've got social media now to actually have an ASBO or to have a curfew or a tag or whatever, I worry that, again, it will be more cool. I think Labour want to call them essentially like respect orders. But is that going to work in the social media age, do you reckon, Billy?
Well, I think having police in the community, which is what we've experimented with in southwest London, makes a difference. I think the other aspect of, the fear of nighttime, it's the impact on women. I mean, we've had some really horrible cases. Yep. Admittedly, one was under COVID, but horrible cases of attacks on women. And so more lighting, more visible presence of police. It doesn't have to be to the point where saturation, but it certainly needs to be that, you know, this kind of behaviour is not acceptable here. And I think in some areas, just to finish this point, I think in some areas the police have given up. You know, they say, oh, it's not worth going in that particular area because it's this, that and the other. So I think the focus on enlivening our city centres, I think what people want is more contact with other people and to be safe in their communities. And I think that's all part of it. Everything now is a bit remote, isn't it? You know, you make that phone call and you realise that they're exceptionally busy and they can't take your call at the moment, but you can go to our website. I think people just want to talk to other people, both in their community and on the telephones and stuff.
I'm going to start doing a regular section on this programme, I've decided as well, because you see, don't you, all the time, these kind of mugshots of people. Like, have you seen this person? You saw that one in the watch shop the other day, the weekend, where the victim, actually, very sadly, he killed himself. I can't dress it up any nicer way. He killed himself. You've got those mugshots of those two fellas that are wanted. You can see them clear as day. One of the fellas, a massive tattoo all the way around his neck. And I think, well, people must know who these guys are. So why aren't they grassing them up? I saw, like, a funeral of this what I would call a wrong-un, basically. He died, and I saw the floral tributes to him. And the floral tributes were like, there was like an AK-47 that was all done out in flowers. There were these wraps of cocaine that were all done out in flowers. It was all about what a legend...
Where was it? Where was this? Where was the funeral?
I can't remember. I'll find it in the break and I'll tell you exactly where it was. But it was like they were glorifying this fella. And I thought, this is wrong. This is like, there's something going on when you think, fair enough, it's your loved one, you loved him, I don't doubt that, but to actually go to a florist with a straight face and say, can you do me wraps of cocaine surrounded in flowers as a floral tribute to this fella that's died? I mean, why would you even make that as a floral tribute if he was a florist anyway?
Well, that was in 2024. You go back a few years to one of the Crays being buried, and literally people were lining the streets as the hearse pulled by a horse, black horse, was taking him to his final resting place. The guy was a vile killer. I mean, people get caught up in the Robin Hood aspect of crime.
Well,
there was nothing Robin Hood about it. Those people who did that, jewellers, killed that young man as sure as if they put a bullet through his heart. It was shocking.
Yeah, that was an awful one. A couple of things did make me feel quite happy, though, because it's all well and good talking about when crimes are not solved, but I have seen a couple of instances of people actually being brought to book. Have you seen these ones? They certainly caught my eye. This fella, look at him. Hang on, I'll show you what he did. He went on to Facebook, and he did this poem, I mean, rap or whatever you want to call it. I'm chilling like a villain. I'm buzzing like a bee. Riding like a soldier. Police can't catch me. Well, they did catch you, my friend, and now you're being banged up in prison, and I absolutely love that. Thank you very much. And did you see as well, we covered the Dine and Dash people. Do you remember those guys that were going into all different restaurants? There was pictures of them absolutely everywhere. Well, they ended up in prison as well. Good. It's fantastic when policing works, isn't it, ladies and gents? I just wish we had a little bit more of it. But tell me your thoughts. Are Labour's plans the right ones? Is it as simple as more bobbies on the beat? You tell me, and I'll see you in 2.
Hello, mixed fortunes in our weather as we head through Friday. Best of the dry, fine weather towards the north and the west, but more cloud across eastern England with some showers, and still feeling warm though in that sunshine. If we look at the pressure pattern then, you can see this area of high pressure. It's trying to build in across the UK, so settling things down towards the north and the west. But further east, close to that area of low pressure, more cloud and some rain here. So through Thursday and evening and overnight, we do hang on to more cloud down the eastern parts of England, like I said, with some further showery outbreaks of rain spreading their way southwards and some quite brisk winds here once again. Further towards the north and the west though, drier, clearer, and not turning too cold overnight, so we hang on to still that breeze. So temperatures not dropping below 10 to 12 degrees in towns and cities. As we start Friday morning then, we get off to a pretty fine start across parts of Wales and southwest England. Some cloud around to start the morning, but also some sunshine. But then we run into that thicker cloud across central and eastern parts of England, with some showery outbreaks of rain affecting Lincolnshire, East Anglia, south east England through the morning. So quite a wet start to the day here. But a fine picture across Northern Ireland, much of Northern England and Scotland. Lots of sunshine to start the day, just a few showers across the very far north and the west of Scotland. And it's more of the same really as we head through the rest of Friday. Always the thickest of the clouds across central and eastern parts of England, with further showery outbreaks of rain spreading their way southwards, particularly across East Anglia and the southeast of England. So by the afternoon, some pretty heavy showers possible across the southeast, with some thunder possible here too. But elsewhere though, the further north and the west you go, generally more in the way of sunshine, slightly lighter winds as well. So in that sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm. We're looking at highs of 17 to 20 degrees there, which is slightly above where we should be for this time of the year. And it's more of the same as we head into Saturday. High pressure still dominating across most of the country. Still a few showers across the southeast, but elsewhere largely dry. Some cloud around at times, but that cloud will break to give some spells of sunshine. So staying largely settled as we head into Sunday, into the start of next week, with some sunshine. Temperatures rising, 23 degrees there possible in the south.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, my name is Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Cheshire, heading east along the M56, heading away from Chester, junction 15 to 14, midway between the M53 interchange and the Chester services. The motorway is partly blocked at the scene of an accident, causing queues back towards the A494 near the English-Welsh border. And in the outskirts of Birmingham at Sheldon, the A45 Coventry Road remains shut eastbound because of an obstruction. On the Surrey stretch of the M25, there are anti-clockwise queues from junction 96, taking about an hour from Leatherhead to Godstone into the roadworks, where restrictions remain in place. North East London, Kingsland High Street is shut at Dalston Junction for a police investigation. In the West End, Regent Street remains shut near Piccadilly Circus because of the Champions League festival. And finally in Dorset at Weymouth, the A354, the Rodwell Road, is closed following a crash. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello everyone, we're back. It's Michelle Dewberry here with Dewbs Co. You can hear them chatting away about the next topic. They're too excited already. It's Kelvin McKenzie, former editor of The Sun, and the former leader of the CW Union, Billy Hayes. What they were just talking about is the Royal Mail, that takeover by a Czech billionaire. I'll come on to that in just a second. Wayne says, Michelle, what we need is to bring back the beat coppers that didn't take any rubbish from anyone. See, that's very interesting. We have this conversation often. Do we need a police force in this country or a police service? That divides people, I can tell you. Anthony says there's no point to have more police officers because they're not given the correct tools to do the job. Peter says, can I just be clear about youth clubs? The wrong uns don't go to youth clubs unless they want to rob the good kids that do go there. Christine says, well, I'm nearly 70 and I wasn't allowed to attend any youth club because that's where the troublemakers hung out. And therefore, she says, I didn't allow my sons to attend them either. Let's get stuck into then this Royal Mail story, shall we? Because everyone will know, be familiar with the situation with the Royal Mail, but you've got a Czech billionaire now that's essentially got the go-ahead to take over this organisation, a 500-year organisation steeped in history. Do you support this move?
No. I mean, it should be nationalised. I mean, one day it's going to be brought back into public ownership. It's interesting you're talking about Ed Davey. It was Ed Davey, as the post office minister, who saw through the privatisation. Vince Cable was the minister. And I've seen him sliding down the slide today and falling off his waterboard yesterday. There's definitely a privatised story there about what he done to Royal Mail, because the chaos we see in Royal Mail...
Look, here he is. I mean, really?
Exactly. I mean, but... The serious point is that Ed Davey allowed this privatisation to go through under Vince Cable. It's been a mess. It's been a disaster. There's been more strife in Royal Mail since it's been privatised.
But it can't have been working that well, or else they wouldn't have privatised it in the first place.
Well, it was working that well, actually. It was giving money back to the government that used to invest in schools. It was a bit of a... you know, privatisation's a bit like flares, isn't it? Everyone wore them and no one wants to remember they wore them. And now privatisation, we've got the possibility of Thames Water getting nationalised by the government, £15 billion I think it's going to cost, and they're still pumping sewage into the... So privatisation is an idea as time has passed, really, and Royal Mail is a real example of a disaster that needs to be taken back into public ownership at some point in the future.
Do you agree with that, Kelvin?
There's two sides to the Royal Mail business. There's the profitable packages side and cardboard boxes and kind of mini Amazon. That does fine. On the other side, there is this ridiculous idea that we have to have letters delivered to us 6 days a week. Now, I am sure there might be somebody somewhere who wants a letter delivered to them 6 days a week. The truth about the matter is if we got it delivered 1 day a week, that would be fine, as far as I'm concerned, and especially with those brown ones, which cause me no end of an issue. So that side of the business loses, I think last year, if I'm right, 375 million quid. I don't see any future in letters. It's the end. I do see deliveries coming from Amazon and the like, the Royal Mail. And, by the way, my post people who deliver to me, fantastic, very nice people. But they know that their future does not lie in letters. So my question for you, Billy, would you be prepared to say, well, which side of Royal Mail should actually be privatised? Or are you saying neither side should be?
Well, in terms of... I'm not in favour of privatisation. I forced it at the time when Ed Davey was Post Office Minister, together with my other colleagues in CW, and we can see the evidence now. You talk about 6 days a week. Well, of course, Amazon delivers 6 days a week, up to quite late at night sometimes. Most people will experience. But the other aspect of that is the connectedness. I think what's really happening in our society, people don't want to hear that, you know, we're exceptionally busy at the time. They want to talk to a human being. And the people that they like to talk to is their postwoman or the postman. I imagine, because you say that your postal workers are great people, you'd probably speak to them.
I do.
And you know, that little bit of connectedness, you know, for older people in particular, but not just older people, people who can't get out the house. You know, that is a part of the service that we would lose if we lost our 6 day a week delivery.
Yeah, but hold on a second, because I mean, we've got a great postie and he's fabulous. He's my mum's postie, absolutely fabulous. Wouldn't want him to lose his job. But we need to be realistic. Life moves on. The days where people are writing each other letters and all the rest of it, they are gone now. The letter writing side of this, the letter postal service, is loss-making. So why are you suggesting, with all the economic restrictions we've got, that what we now do is put our arms around a debt pit and hug it? Why would you want that for the public purse?
Well, that's quite an interesting way of putting it all. I
It's
think
true,
but the first thing, let's have a look. I mean, I would say, let's have a look at what the situation is in Royal. Since it's been privatised, it's been a mess. And despite when I was...
but come on, face facts. You're on about flares and stuff. We write less letters than before. We've got email. We don't communicate in that way anymore. It's an archaic way. Yes, there's some bits and pieces, but nowhere near like what it used to be. And harking back to the days of public ownership or wanting renationalisation, it's a false economy. Life's moved on.
Well, the social mail, as it was often called, that's people like the rest of us, only ever a small part of the business. The big part of the business is direct mail, and that's not an unimportant part of the business. And so you'd have to look at the whole picture. But the fact is, Davey and Vince Cable made a massive error in privatising Royal Mail. There's some things in our society that need to be publicly owned, like the railways, probably like the waterways, the way things are at the moment.
Honestly, Billy, talking about the railways, I'm old enough to remember when it was nationalised, and it was absolutely dreadful. I agree with you. It doesn't seem to have got much better, but it certainly wasn't as bad as before.
Well, I'm going to leave these two to reminisce about curly sandwiches on British Rail in the break. When I come back, let's talk social housing, shall we? Do you think we need more of it in this country or not?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
How does it work in your home, then, when you're discussing politics, especially with your young son, Nigel?
Well, I mean, we discuss politics rather than argue about it. Both of us are political professionals. We've been in the game a long time, so we understand that. So we're more keen on what is actually going on and how things are working out than clashing over opinions. Now, Claire is a Tory Brexiteer. I'm a Labour Remainer.
Do you think relationships like your own are going to become less and less common?
I think they are, and I think we can see that politics has become very divided, it's become very toxic, and we've lost that art of debating. I'm more than happy to speak to anybody on any subject to do with politics, because I think it's only healthy to listen to someone's opinion. You may not agree with it, you may think that they're ridiculous. However, I think it's really important that you hear those views, because if you only become encased in a bubble of your own opinion, you're never going to learn anything. And I think politics needs that. You need to be able to explore other sides of an argument. It also makes you better at arguing.
Yeah.
And Nigel and I constantly disagree on various bits and pieces, but you learn how to place your argument so much better because you know what the other side are thinking. Now, if we had that across the country and across the House of Commons, we could have so much better debate and so many better different opinions coming through, and it would be a lot healthier.
And polite debate, which always strikes me about you two. You disagree on most things when it comes to politics, but you do so with so much humour and so much respect for one another.
Well, we find politics fun, and so when we bring politics into the home, we want to have fun with it too.
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Many of you getting in touch about those previous topics. Alongside me, of course, Kelvin McKenzie and Billy Hayes-Remain. Lots of you getting in touch about that policing. So many. Hamish says you need to reopen all the police officers, police stations. Lots of you are talking about the lack of prison capacity. It's all well and good clamping down on crime, but if you've got nowhere to put said criminals, what's the point? Hear to that. Build some more. How complicated can that be? Look, before we go, let's talk about social housing, shall we? Because now there's pressure on politicians to commit to building 90,000 new social houses a year. There's a big open letter. It's been signed by multiple organisations supporting this. Kelvin, do you support it?
Well, as things stand, every time you want to build any kind of housing now, you have to give up 35 to 40% of that land has to now go to social housing. So it's not as though social housing, whether it's under the Tories or under Labour, is something which nobody wants to do. What I am hostile to, and I'm hostile to it for council tenants right now, is why they have such a huge subsidy if their income has in fact gone up or is actually at a level where they could afford to pay a percentage of what private tenants pay. So in London, you're in a 2 or 3 bedroom council house, you will pay around £600 a month, £650 a month, whereas the same flat for a private tenant is like £2,500. And the reason that everybody's bailed out of becoming a landlord is because there's no mortgage tax relief. So I would restore that, more private, and I would say to people who live in council flats, I'm afraid you have to pay more than a quarter, 25% of the private of what the private tenant has to pay. It is ridiculous and quite wrong.
Billy?
Build more houses. I mean, it's the issue of the time, really, isn't it? In terms of, I mean, the danger is we can get nostalgic about the past, but as I said earlier, we lived in a council flat, 7 of us, and it was fantastic, and we had, it was a great time, and obviously it's different times now. But young people now can't buy houses in London. If they were earning an average wage, and I believe there's even an app to tell you how far out of London you have to go to get somewhere to live. So it's definitely an issue, housing, and it needs to be tackled. And yes, I wouldn't rule out having a mixture of tenancies, different, private, public, but we just need to build more council houses. We managed to do that after the Second World War. Phenomenal amount of houses were built. Admittedly, there was a lot of destruction, but nonetheless, we managed to do that. Why can't we do it now?
I've only got about 30 seconds left, but John, a viewer, says no more social housing. It drives laziness because more and more people will rely on welfare rather than working for a living. We have to break that cycle.
Every one of our family got a job, and we lived in a council flat, not even a house.
I was raised in a council flat as well, so
all right.
Should there be an earnings limit? Once you earn X amount of money, then you can't be in social housing. I remember, who was that union boss?
Yeah, it was. The guy who died.
Union boss?
The guy who died.
Who was that?
Bob Crow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't he well known as earning a good sum of cash and living in a council
house? And
house?
his missus was working as well. She was bringing a good lump as well. It's an absolute disgrace.
Well, there you go. Still, lots of you getting in. The crime story is the one that's got you talking. Apparently, you believe that there's too much workness going on in police officing, and that is one of the reasons that we're not solving crime anymore. Police need to be tougher, is what you say. Christine, you say bring back public stocks for kids. Not sure that one is going to be in anyone's manifesto. Got to be honest with you there, Christine. Anyway, chaps, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your company at home. Don't go anywhere because Farage is up next. I'll see you tomorrow night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, mixed fortunes in our weather as we head through Friday. Best of the dry, fine weather towards the north and the west, but more cloud across eastern England with some showers and still feeling warm though in that sunshine. If we look at the pressure pattern then, you can see this area of high pressure. It's trying to build in across the UK, so settling things down towards the north and the west. But further east, close to that area of low pressure, more cloud and some rain here. So through Thursday and evening and overnight, we do hang on to more cloud down the eastern parts of England, like I said, with some further showery outbreaks of rain spreading their way southwards and some quite brisk winds here once again. Further towards the north and the west though, drier, clearer and not too cold overnight, so we hang on to still that breeze. So temperatures not dropping below 10 to 12 degrees in towns and cities. As we start Friday morning then, we get off to a pretty fine start across parts of Wales and southwest England. Some cloud around to start the morning, but also some sunshine. But then we run into that thicker cloud across central and eastern parts of England with some showery outbreaks of rain affecting Lincolnshire, East Anglia, south east England through the morning. So quite a wet start to the day here. But a fine picture across Northern Ireland, much of Northern England and Scotland. Lots of sunshine to start the day, just a few showers across the very far north and the west of Scotland. And it's more of the same really as we head through the rest of Friday. Always the thickest of the clouds across central and eastern parts of England, with further showery outbreaks of rain spreading their way southwards, particularly across East Anglia and the southeast of England. So by the afternoon, some pretty heavy showers possible across the southeast, with some thunder possible here too. But elsewhere though, the further north and the west you go, generally more in the way of sunshine, slightly lighter winds as well. So in that sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm. We're looking at highs of 17 to 20 degrees there, which is slightly above where we should be for this time of the year. And it's more of the same as we head into Saturday. High pressure still dominating across most of the country. Still a few showers across the southeast, but elsewhere largely dry. Some cloud around at times, but that cloud will break to give some spells of sunshine. So staying largely settled as we head into Sunday, into the start of next week, with some sunshine. Temperatures rising, 23 degrees there possible in the south.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner with your latest long queues if you're heading north up the M90, heading away from Edinburgh. Approaching the Queensferry crossing, junction 1A, a lorry's broken down, blocking off the left lane. Really slow as well on the M8, heading west to junction 10. The Balarnock turn-off where breakdowns blocking off a lane on the exit slip roads, of course, as you head towards Glasgow. This is the M56 in Cheshire, is partly blocked eastbound from the M53 to the Chester services, and the scene of an accident causing queues heading away from Chester